Good day everyone, Dr. Blob here. Today we'll be examining the Endfield boat trailers, as well as the information we can gather from their site. Personally, I'm not gonna elaborate much, like I said, there is very little information about it. Let's see what I think will be important in the future. Starting with mountain contour. This doesn't seem to be anything too important with the game itself, but rather it seems to be the division within Hypergriff that will be in charge of Endfield. Next, we have a planet surrounded by what appears to be an asteroid field. And as far as I can tell, there is an ocean as well, but not too clearly, so I don't know if Talos-II has the same problem as with Terra, where oceans are but a myth. Next, in the scene when we can see the building platform breaching atmosphere, we can also see the white wall that appears also at the end of the trailer. At first it looks like an aurora, but if you look closer to the bottom, it seems to be touching the ground, so I think it will be some sort of wall preventing us from entering certain areas, or maybe a catastrophe-like event. Next, it is stated that there are two kinds of relics in this planet. The first are the relics of a previous civilization, which I think it's safe to say it might have been Earth, or at very least, a planet once colonized by us. Next, we can see here the word Landbreaker. Is this character's codename, or the codename of the unit as a whole? We don't know yet, but I presume it is possibly his codename. Next, and here we have an example of how the base manage looks in the game. Next, it looks like these vehicles are heading towards a storm. However, if we look a bit back, it's not only the sandstorm coming towards them, but also some sort of building or a structure that is being blocked by the sand, which brings me to the second type of relics we can find, which are those of previous Endfield attempts at colonizing this planet. Next, we see for the first time what appears to be the enemies we will be facing during the gameplay. They seems to be some sort of drones, which can combine together to become a bigger device. Also, as many other doctors have pointed out in other reaction videos, the male character clearly is holding an assault rifle. We don't know yet if it still uses Originium as an igniter or rather good old gunpowder. This one is interesting because it shows us both types of relics. In the foreground we have the ones from Endfield, and in the background we have those of the previous civilization. Really a heavy contrast in technological advancements. This one, it looks either as an observatory or as a radar of sorts. Both will work well when trying to take something out into space, as we can see on the very next scene where something is going out of the planet. However, going back to the previous scene, we can see that in the cliff there appears to be a human with something flowing behind them. This could be a Sancta, but there is no halo. For the time being, I don't know what this individual is supposed to be. Now, reaching the end of the first trailer, we can see that something has scraped the main character, but as the scene goes on, we can see that said scrapes are slowly healing up, so maybe she has a passive healing or a shield of sorts. And again we can see the giant white wall. It appears to be more of a physical wall rather than just some lights. Finally, the final words given by what appears to be these game versions of Priestess over the frontier into the front, pointing out at Enfield's role as pioneers. Now to the gameplay trailer. This one, the moment I saw it, the first thing I thought was Phantom Pain. It is quite different, but how it appears and how it appears to move with the character's wrist, it reminds me a lot of that good old game. And here we can see that at the very least there will be 3D platform movement, but for what I can see, it could possibly be something more akin with an action RPG, not unlike Kingdom Hearts, or maybe a beat 'em up like the Devil May Cry series. Here again we have another example of ruins of the Endfield category, Something that caught my attention is how it says Dent Front. Either there's something very dangerous in there, or maybe one of the enemy factions had taken over it. This one is very interesting to me. In the middle of the Endfield relics we can see a Talos-II relic, which itself seems to be powered by Originium itself. There wasn't much to say about the second trailer, mostly because, and as they clearly point out during the trailer, this is very early in the game development, so this is mostly a representation of what they would like to make. There is no way to know if this will be actually in the gameplay per se, but for the time being, I am very interested in the world they will show us. Now to the information available in their website. There is not much to point out other than the obvious. Endfield, it was important, it had an unexpected conflict, and it has to start back from scratch, thus explaining why most of our resources will be so low at the beginning of the game. The corruption, an even more dangerous type of catastrophe. Now, how could there be catastrophes if this is in Terra? As far as we know, catastrophes are the source, or maybe because of Originium. Maybe there is a possibility of this being terrain back in the past. Here we have a more detailed description of the enemies of the game, the so-called Achelos, and how they can combine to make very different forms. On the foreground we can see something akin of a spider or maybe a tank. Just above it we can also see a couple of drone-like constructions, and at the very background we can see something more akin of a combat craft. Here we have what appears to be the main characters of our faction, plus other characters who may be representing the other factions in the planet. The one in the back with the ominously red eyes is possibly the leader of the aggressive faction. Something I want to mention, and it's not a theory, just I found it hilarious. The one with the halo and the little horns, or what appears to be horns, reminds me a lot of a certain VTuber. Here we have an even more clear description of other characters. At the very least, Hypergriff has a very strong idea of where they want to take the story and their characters. Also, and I think this is the most interesting part of this image, there's appeared to be someone from Longman's Shadow Guard, which in itself makes even more questions. Is this the past? Is this the future? Is this a parallel world? How is this connected to Terra? At the very least, we know this is related to Arknights in some way. From now, all we can do is wait and expect. And those are my 2 cents in the information we have at hand. I would like to try to make another theory based in this information, but I still want to wait for Hypergriff to share a bit more of their developing, just so I can be a bit more sure regarding said theory. For now, all I can say is this. Maybe this is the beginning of Terra. This has been Dr. Blob, wishing you all a great time. And as always, stay healthy everyone.